Back in college, Saquon Barkley was the man. He racked up 3,843 rushing yards and 1,195 receiving yards, along with 43 rushing touchdowns and 8 receiving touchdowns to put together one of the most impressive college careers we have ever seen in just 3 years at Penn State. I mean, along with that, he was one of the most electrifying players we have ever seen, posting highlights every single week. So we knew he was going to be one of the top picks in the draft. We weren't 100% sure where he would go. And in the 2018 draft, despite having many holes on the roster, including at the quarterback position, the New York Giants would take Saquon number 2 and think that they had the next superstar of New York for many years to come. I mean, at the time, it was hard to argue with their reasoning. Saquon was the man. He had the super calves. He had the size. He had the speed. He had the highlights. He had the production at Penn State. He was going to be the next great running back in the NFL. And for a little bit of time, he was proving them right. He ran for 1,300 yards his rookie year, won the Rookie of the Year, paired that with 11 touchdowns that season, and then came back the next year, ran for 1,000 yards in only 13 games. By the way, he stayed healthy for his whole rookie season there, playing all 16 games, and then came back, played 13 games the next season. So for his first 2 seasons, he was an elite running back and was going to be one of the best, if not the best running back in the NFL. And then the injuries came, and that kind of derailed him there for a bit because he only was able to play 2 games in 2020, and then he came back last year, 2021, and did not have a great season with the Giants. Only played 13 games, which is pretty good coming off the injury, but I mean, once again, battling injuries there and just did not really come back as the same player. And many are wondering, is Saquon done? Is he going to be able to recover? We've seen running backs go out. Todd Gurley had a very productive start to his career, and then the arthritis hit him, struggled with injuries. We've seen other running backs, deal with injuries, not be able to come back the same. Can Saquon come back and be that same player? And I'm here to tell you, with Saquon looking healthier than ever, he just might. For starters, any great running back needs a good offensive line in front of him, and the New York Giants are starting to improve that offensive line. You look at who they add in free agency, right guard Mark Lewinsky over from the Colts. He had a PFF grade of about 70 last year for them. He's going to slide in at right guard and really help open up some holes on that right side alongside their draft pick, Evan Neal. They got great value with him there in the draft, and Evan Neal at the number 7 pick is really going to help them at that right tackle spot, especially on that right side there. And hopefully this is going to help Saquon not have to do as much, and he's going to have more lanes to run through, because in past years we've seen that this Giants O-line just has not been great. And now they've got some pieces there. You look at, they still got Andrew Thomas at left tackle, and they bring in John Feliciano also through free agency to play center. So they're starting to build a little bit of an offensive line there. Still not an elite offensive line, but it'll probably give Saquon a little bit of a better line to run behind this year in New York. So that should definitely help Saquon find some holes and be able to break off some explosive long runs. Next up, we have to look at Saquon's current health, and after not having to take so much of the workload last year, I think that Saquon is going to come back healthier than ever. He said that he feels better than ever, and if you look at his past injuries, they were unfortunate cases, stepping on ankles and stuff. So I think that it is reasonable to believe that Saquon could stay healthy this year. I think that's the big question. Can he stay healthy? And if you want to assume that he's going to get injured just because of his prior history, that's fine. But I think that Saquon is going to be able to stay healthy as long as they don't force too many of the carries onto him this year and mix in some other running backs. So I think that he could be able to stay healthy this year, and I think that he will, just because I think they'll mix in some other running backs, not force him to take too many snaps. But I think that his workload will definitely increase from last year just because he's going to be a lot healthier having this offseason to recover, and they didn't force too much on him last year. So I think Saquon is going to be healthier than ever, and that should let him be available for most games this season. And finally, we have to look at the coaching change that happened in New York. They bring Brian Daboll over from the Buffalo Bills to become their head coach. Brian Daboll was the offensive coordinator for the Bills with Josh Allen. They obviously had a historic season offensively, and Josh Allen put up amazing numbers, but they don't have the same personnel in New York. You look at their quarterback, Daniel Jones, not even on the same level or close to it as Josh Allen. So I think that they're going to have to develop a different scheme than they had in Buffalo. Probably going to focus more on that rushing attack with Saquon Barkley, which should benefit Saquon and his numbers this year. So Brian Daboll probably going to help Saquon devise some ways to get him the ball out of the backfield, whether it be catching or just running the ball. I think Saquon is going to flourish more than he did last year. Last year, they had Jason Garrett calling the plays, a little bit of Joe Judge. It was kind of a mess there. I think they'll be much more organized this year with Brian Daboll. He is an offensive guru. I think that they'll get it figured out, and I think Saquon will be in a much better scheme this year with their new head coach. And what the Giants have done is great. They brought in a new coach, some new pieces on the offensive line, but let's be honest, Saquon is not going to become that player that we've always wanted him to become if he stays on the Giants. He would have to get traded to another team, and they probably wouldn't have to give up a lot of capital to get him just because he's a running back who's had injuries. Another reason why you don't draft a running back really high like the Giants did. They kind of screwed themselves over, but a team wouldn't have to give up much to get Saquon. And there's one team in particular that I'm looking at that I think would be a perfect fit for Saquon. And that team is the San Francisco 49ers. I mean, could you imagine Saquon in that offense with that coach, Kyle Shanahan, who has arguably the best run scheme in the entire NFL? Their offensive line is great. He'd be able to run through with Trent Williams, guys like that blocking for him. Be alongside Elijah Mitchell to form a formidable 1-2 punch there in San Francisco. We've seen many running backs flourish in that offense, guys like Raheem Mostert, Elijah Mitchell, who weren't really well-known guys, and then they came in there and had tremendous success there with Kyle Shanahan calling the plays. And then you have a guy like Trey Lance coming in at quarterback. It would take a lot of pressure off of him, and I think Saquon would be able to stay healthy because of Elijah Mitchell there, who could take some touches. And I think that them working in tandem there would be a deadly run offense there. I mean, they're trying to compete with the Rams, and I think if they were to give up, a later round pick, maybe a third or fourth, fifth, sixth, whatever, to go and acquire Saquon, I think that would do wonders for them. Saquon would fit perfectly there. He'd have a nice line to run behind, and warm weather, maybe that helps with his injuries too. But I think that San Francisco, that would be a move, in my opinion, that would really put them over the top if he could stay healthy and allow them to compete with the Rams, because I think right now they'd be able to compete with them, but I'd still take the Rams over them. If they were to acquire Saquon, that would really make me think if they're the best team in the NFC West, because people forget how good Saquon really is when he's healthy, and that's running behind the Giants line. Can you imagine him running in the run scheme in San Francisco behind that line? So I think a trade to San Francisco would do wonders for Saquon's career. Probably not going to happen, but one can dream, because I think that Saquon's potential to be one of the greatest running backs of this generation is kind of held back by the fact that he's in New York. Playing for a team like San Francisco in that offense would truly unlock his full potential. So let me know if you think that Saquon can make a comeback with the Giants this season, or if you think he's going to get traded, or whatever's going to happen with his future if he can stay healthy. But if you did enjoy this video, please leave a like and subscribe, and that is AK21 out.